In sitting meditation, as it is taught here, we just hold very still. Eyes are open, all the senses around receive. Just observe whatever shows up in the mind stream, including thoughts, memories, emotions. Just observe. Just observe. If you're in the Zendo, please come and gather in front of the altar. If you're on Zoom, please turn toward your computer screen. And thank you. And if you could be on screen, good. If you can't, then I'll just look at your name then. Good evening. Welcome to this talk. Before we begin the talk, I'd like to thank everyone who's helped us with this community mindfulness project. We had a fundraiser yesterday where we raised $14,500 in one day. And with the match, we have a match of $5,000. And with that, we have $20,000 basically. Just goes towards the Community Mindfulness Center. So thank you. Thank you. Did some calligraphies to help out with that also. I have a lot of gratitude for that. And so continue to help us if you can. Thank you so much. A little bit out of breath today, so pardon me if I tend to yawn or sigh occasionally. Don't take it personal. Not about you. What was the talk title? Good one.
Receive mistakes.
Received? Was it received? Okay. Did I think that up? Okay. So receive, this, you know what receive means? Something comes along, receive that, receive it by looking at it, receive it by hearing it, receive it by holding out your hands and receive it, receive. Very important part of awareness practice is to receive. The thing we don't often receive very well are mistakes. So receive mistakes. The instant something is seen as being wrong or a mistake, whether it's something you do, knock a coffee cup off the table, mistake. It's not that you couldn't correct it, but it needs to be very relative and situational. What is the most important thing that is forever missed all the time is just to watch what's happening, just to receive what's happening. To not only receive that you've just bumped the coffee cup off the table, but your reaction to it. Receive that rather than produce a bunch of commentary on it or expletives or whatever to fill in the space, to have something come out to just stop you from being vividly aware of what happened. Very important to observe that. I talked about that a little bit last night when I was doing some calligraphy with a group of people up in Grand Rapids about when I see what I'm doing, I'm observing this. It looks like I'm producing because it looks like anybody else with a brush, probably scribbling around on the paper, but I'm vividly aware of what is coming towards me, and it feels like one continuous mistake. Observe that. It doesn't feel like, oh, I'm doing this so beautifully. I have such amazing control. I've been doing calligraphy for so long. I'm just getting better and better and better. Not particularly, it doesn't show up that way. Well, the idea here, as I've said hundreds of times, it's about awareness. It's not so much about what you're aware of. That being said, in this case, with this particular teaching, I'm emphasizing, encouraging you to watch the discontinuity of what you thought was going to happen and what's now happening. It's not like a preparation for receiving illness or problems. It's just about awareness. Just be aware. Be aware. And you train yourself to do that, of course, by looking at the wall, looking at the floor, or looking at your closet door, wherever you happen to practice shikantaza, sitting practice of meditation. Very important. Whole world is pretty crazy. If you haven't noticed, seems to be getting worse in so many ways. I'm laughing because it's astonishing how completely insane people can be so much to promote things that are not in the interest of their health or their safety, and yet be behind it. Be aware. Be aware when you're walking somewhere, if you bump into someone, or if you stub your foot. Be aware if someone criticizes you, they've asked you to do this, and you start to do something that isn't exactly what they said, and they see you and say, no, no, I don't mean that, I mean this. Receive that rather than feel particularly go into some kind of feeling of being fixed or corrected or admonished. But if that feeling does come up, then receive that. Well, it's always about receiving. Receive the first instance and receive any secondary or tertiary thing that arises hot on the heels of what just occurred relative to your awareness of that particular incidents. Be aware. Make your whole life about being aware of everything rather than getting things right or straightening things out. We have really very little say-so about anything. It's interesting. I don't know what Trungpa Rinpoche's intention was, but he sometimes referred to the Kagyu lineage as the mishap lineage. So I don't think he was talking about the same thing I am, but it's always interested me. There's a book on that called The Mishap Lineage that he wrote. I read it, but I don't remember what it said. It's probably really important material too. I at one time asked another Kagyu Lama, this was back in the late 70s, early 80s. Have you ever heard of this is a fully ordained monk in the Kagyupa. I said, have you ever heard of the mishap lineage? Oh, I've heard of that. As well, Trungpa Rinpoche referred to the lineage that you're ordained in as the mishap lineage. Like Jesus. Oh, Trungpa. That's all he got out of it. He was probably at that time older than I was, probably in his 50s or 60s. Trungpa. But what I'm talking about here is to whatever shows up through your sitting practice of meditation, you'll be able to receive more and produce less. Not that you should stop thinking or producing or running out on a jog or doing something with your life other than just sitting and looking at the wall. But when you can, endeavor to receive this world, receive this amazing life that you've been given. This was given to you. You didn't get to say anything about it. You didn't even get to sit back and in some kind of a meeting hall somewhere and say, I don't want to be a black guy. I'd rather be, you know what I'm talking about. You have no say so. You can't just, even if you're born to a woman or your mother that has blue eyes and your father has blue eyes, you may not have blue eyes. There's no way to determine that. The causes and conditions in that area are so extremely complicated that's an understatement to say that. Tremendous understatement, because it's the particularity of each so-called individual situation is you can't even break. You can even that doesn't hold still to be a solid thing. That still has lots of parts. The illusion has parts. If you look at it and you see what it is, you see that it's made of lots of parts, countless, and it's unreal. It sure is convincing, isn't it? Our emotions are convincing, thoughts are convincing, ideas, memory is very convincing. We actually think we remembered what happened yesterday or last week. But if you notice, it's very selective. You only remember what a particular event if it happens to have some sharp edges around it. But you don't remember what happened an hour before then. You can't particularly go into detail about any of that. Even someone with a really amazing memory can only do so much with that. You probably have heard that with hypnosis, you can go in and actually extract information because consciousness doesn't forget anything. I think there's something to that. But the consciousness that is absorbed in self-centeredness only has a very selective memory. And that memory can be so selective that you'll actually block out things that threaten your identity or threaten your safety, as you probably already know. And though there are different approaches to this, I don't necessarily think it's a good idea to go in and dredge that material out so you can have a memory of something that happened when you were abused. Not a good idea to go aggressively into that area and haul things out into the daylight. Better to sit down, sit still, hold still, and watch what moves in the mind stream for the rest of your life. Then what you need to see will arise. What you don't need to see will stay in the dark. Just a way of talking about it. Any questions at this point? Sir?
Sokuzan, did you say earlier that you still feel as though what you're doing is a mistake?
Off and on, sure. I use the example, I'm put the brush in the ink pot and pick it up like this. And then I start to come down to make the letter, I think it was O, but before I could get down that far, ink dropped out of the brush and put a big splotch in the center of the O. And I felt like as I was making the O that was off balance. That didn't look so good. So kind of a mistake or something that just randomly happened. And what I say about that is just be aware of that. Nothing is wrong. There's nothing fundamentally wrong. Everything that occurs is totally exact and appropriate. But how you feel about it is what makes it so confusing and what causes so much chaos in the world. As we add on, something happened instead of receiving it. We add on our opinion or idea. Well, that shouldn't have happened. I should have not put so much ink in the brush. But that didn't happen. I didn't go that far, although I have. But in this particular time, I just saw it and it felt out of balance. That's what I received. Interestingly enough, it was not. I just kept going, and I think the word that I was doing, the calligraphy was doing observe. Does anybody remember that one? There's a big blob in the center of it, of the O. It's just like a circle with an eyeball. More? Lots of room for questions there in that area. That's what this talk is about. Observe what's going wrong. Observe any negativity that you feel like you caused, you feel like your partner's caused, or the society has caused, or a whole government has caused. Let's talk about that. Go ahead.
Sokuzan, as a student, I impute on you that if something happens, you automatically see the balance of something, or that you are aware that you don't make any mistakes. So what's the projection of the student onto the teacher?
Are you saying you think I don't make any mistakes? No, that's an imputation. So what's your question?
Sokuzan, what is the difference what's the substrate of the difference that I impute onto you as being different than
I don't know what you're doing. Don't add, don't subtract, don't divide, don't do any math at all. Nothing, just receive. Adding, it might look like you're adding something that's happening onto you, but if you just receive it, it just shows up and it may hang around and it may keep right on going past your eyes or past your ears. Just receive. More about that if you have it. It's a good area to ask questions and you have it.
So going up.
Wait a minute, go ahead.
No, Bowen, are you saying that there's no such thing as mistakes? I mean, everything's an illusion anyways, but are you also saying that,
Well, it seems like that. So when you do something, you could, of course, if you knock a coffee cup off and there it goes. But you'll notice that there's a whole area, if you practice this for a while, there's an whole area where you really appreciate what happens to you, when something falls out of the tree or when the coffee cup falls. It's not we're saying, oh, this is right, this is perfect, this is your time to be at one with everything. I'm not talking about some kind of bullshit philosophy. It's very, very immediate. It's just your life. And it's happening, and you can, as the saying in the 3 pure precepts, be with all things. And be with all things means that something occurs and you don't separate yourself from it. It doesn't mean you're over here trying to glue yourself onto something you don't like. It's not that kind of a mental state. It's just that you are that, whatever is happening. It does, you neither agree nor disagree, but there might be a quality of it being off balance or going a different way than you thought it would. And what's being said is just observe that. If you observe it, then you are being with all things. You just may not get a credential for it. The credential part, that's ego. And if ego's in there trying to be in the present moment or be with all things, looking for a credential, then that's a misunderstanding. And that's what that person needs, a teacher who's looking at this, who can see it, not a teacher who thinks really, really clearly and has a lot of wonderful conceptual understanding of the teachings and is able to pull forth as a scholar. Not that that's not valuable. We need scholars. But the true teacher, or in Sanskrit, a Satguru or Sadguru, true teacher. We could just use the word true teacher. We don't need a fancy Sanskrit word. Someone who's teaching out of reality, out of what they're looking at. And they're not impressed by what they're looking at. They're not impressed by themselves looking at it because they know there isn't a separate being. Or
I'm thinking of a example earlier today when you had a appointment with a student and you forgot, Unio forgot, and I forgot.
I didn't forget, I just didn't remember.
Right.
That's the same thing.
What came up for you was a lot of anger.
Where was the anger at?
It was just expressed.
Was I angry at you?
No,
Was I angry at her?
no,
Who was I angry at?
there was just anger.
Wasn't anybody who was angry? Yes.
So in that case,
So wait, let me finish. Since you started in that direction, I want you to finish your question. But I'm saying anger is just self-existing. It doesn't come out against a person. There's no person here. This person died long ago. There's still a human form here. Hopefully this person is a teacher, and hopefully this person is looking clearly enough at what this is so that if you're closed down or shut down about it, this person, with your permission, might be able to help you see it before your body-mind complex goes back into the elements. Go ahead.
well, in that situation, it seems like that was something that shouldn't have happened. Mistake,
Yes,
but is it dependent origination, karma?
it's
Life.
exactly what should happen. You can write it off with any word. It was just life. It's just a bad memory. Basically, I wanted to talk to her. I told her I would talk to her, and I could have that's a very good question though. I could have set my alarm or something to rather than depend on other people to do that. We're also busy. You're busy. I can't expect you to do that, but I don't, not blaming anyone for that. Not even blaming myself for it. Yes,
Is that a mistake?
yes, it's a mistake. I meant to, well, obviously it is. I meant to, but it's not a mistake that is where there's something wrong. It's just dependently arisen. If you wanted to go into the detail of it, you could say that the way this person's memory is working is not particularly dependable, especially being as old as I am. So it works pretty good for, maybe better than people who are my age who are dead. Wait a minute, I just said I was dead, didn't I? What is that? I mean, but the anger is just, I don't have to be somebody else. I'm no longer, have no interest in appearing like a kind, peaceful, loving person. My agenda, if I have any at all, is to help you see your true nature. So if 3 people out of these 20 or 30 people that are listening can see what this is, then you'll no longer harm anyone. And if anybody interacts with you, anything you do with them will be basically supporting their Buddha nature, even if they don't know it. You don't have to be a Dharma teacher. You can just stop meddling with people. So I would like to see that. That would be my way of extending whatever I can do as a teacher, is to hopefully you will be able to teach. Yes.
Oh, divine. So in that situation, the mistake happened, and then there was anger that showed up that was
Did
triggered.
I break any windows out, or what did I do? I was really mad. What did I do?
Just yelled and
Yelled. What did I say? Did I yell at Jisheen? Is she here? No, I yelled at her earlier. What happened?
you just expressed anger with maybe saying, I don't know, 8-10 words. And then,
Were there expletives?
no,
Were
you
they
just were
just
really frustrated.
like, oh darn, I've forgotten something? What a bad person I am.
Well, you felt really bad because of
I
the
did,
intention
because-
that you.
Because of her, I felt bad because I know she needed some help. And but it turned around to find out a little bit later that she actually, I don't know if I shared that with you. Yeah, she got interrupted too. So I talked to her later. Interesting, huh?
So in that situation, there was a mistake made and then emotion
I forgot something.
triggered.
And then I got irritated with it that I forgot it. Yes. Okay, what's your question?
So are both of those mistakes? The first
There-
one was a mistake, the second one was reaction to that mistake?
However you want to look at it. No, the reaction is not, no, the reaction is just dependent origination. That's why I keep telling all of you, you don't have to be somebody else. You can be angry, you can be irritated. It's the anger is only difficult if there's hatred, if there's intense, just despising someone else. But that, even towards oneself, despising oneself, but I don't particularly do that. I was just angry because I didn't remember that. It's very simple. It wasn't particularly intense anger, but it was anger, irritation. Yes. You don't have to be somebody else. This doesn't mean you shouldn't really be aware of the anger. And I was quite aware of that anger that was showing up. I'm interested to hear, does this sound like I'm being defensive? If you think so, say so. And I'll show you I'm not really being defensive. No, anger, it's okay. Anger, passion, even ignorance or shutting down or turning away. These are all part of the illusion, and we are human beings. At least that's what we think we are. And we're part of this. And the practice, as I understand it, is to be vividly aware of whatever is happening in your mind stream, in your life stream, at the kitchen table, down the hallway, the next door neighbor, in your political system, and in the world. Again, without agreeing, disagreeing, or looking away. If you can do that, then you'll know exactly what you need to do. And what I did after that was to text her and say, I blew it. I forgot. I can't remember what I said, but something like that. I forgot about our appointment, and when's the next time we can talk? And that's when she said, well, I was busy at that time anyway. So she wouldn't have been able to answer anyway. Not that that validates anything. But then she said, but I'm busy, I'm available between 2, what did she say, 2 and 4 or something like that. Anyway, it was it. I was able to talk to her for half an hour. So she's in New York. Yes.
So you received the mistake and you received anger because of the
Yes.
mistake.
Exactly. Just like when I'm plopping that ink down on the pad, I didn't feel anger, but it's like a negative feeling comes up about that. And so that's what I'm encouraging you or anyone to say, Do not try to add on to that, what is already showing up. There's a mistake or something that is misaligned or the coffee cup is off the table. I'm not saying you might not have an expletive or something, but it's not going to be much. Most of it's going to be the awareness of what is happening, including what is happening in the mind stream of being frustrated with your clumsiness maybe. So we're not trying to be somebody else. But you can actually be, if you can do this, then any anger, any passion, aggression, and ignorance that arises is what's been called by the Tibetans rangjung, or self-existing. It just comes up and has no tailwind. There's no personhood behind it that feels that way. There's just that, because dependent origination is going to continue to function. But if it functions in the weather, then it's just wind, temperature, sunshine, rain, all of that comes and goes, with all dependent on all the other elements that are shifting around. Same thing can happen with you as a living being. You can actually finally not miss your life. You can actually be genuine. You may end up being a Dharma teacher. You may move back to Nebraska and work on a possum farm. Yes.
Mizuku bowing, if I manage to cover up how I'm feeling by producing instead of receiving it, and I'm not aware of how I'm feeling, is that a mistake?
No. You just screwed up. Sit more. I wouldn't say saying it's a mistake or something. I don't know how helpful that is. I'm not saying that situationally there aren't times when you might want to use that commentary or that index, but generally speaking, it's just things go this way, they go that way. Sometimes they get out of balance. Sometimes we don't see clearly. Sometimes I space out and my memory isn't working about something I intended to do. I get irritated because I didn't remember it.
Mizuku bowing, last night with that calligraphy with the splotch, I remember you saying that you might correct something like that. You might go back.
Yes.
What is there a difference between what you would and would not correct?
Yes. Don't do anything unless you have to. Something I say all the time. I don't know if I've made a calligraphy like that, have I? I should start. Don't do anything unless you have to. Well, that sounds like I need to say that in Mandarin or something, so it'll sound fancy. So it's situational. What that situation is about, I don't know, because I'm not looking at the differentiation between this thought, this concept, that concept, or right and wrong, or should be or shouldn't be. I'm just looking at what's showing up visually in that case. It's just that what happened there. And I may look at that and I may go back in and move the brush around that circle of an O, which is for the word, I think, observe. Eventually, it ended up being that word, or at least close to it. I may go back in and cover that up, but I didn't. And there was no decision made there. It comes closest to saying, I don't do anything unless you have to. I did not have to cover that up. And you could even say, I could even say, anyone could say that I was more interested in continuing to receive how that so-called something being off, not a mistake exactly, but something that was not intended, started to show up. I had a strong curiosity or interest. Something you asked about is curiosity. Something I was curious about how that would look as we went along. So I could have gotten into that word and I could have come back up and changed that or modified it. If you were watching very close, you could see where I would write a whole word out and come back and do something else up here at the top, change it or add something to it. I watched Trungpa Rinpoche do that in calligraphies way back in the 1970s. I didn't know what he was doing at the time, and I'm not super sure I know now, but I have an idea. Yes, sir.
Sure, going in the example of that expression of anger and then using language to express that for you, are you getting rid of your suffering in the way that a student might?
Who said that I was suffering? Am I suffering? There's intense suffering over here. There's just no person. The identity is come apart, but the suffering here is intense. Otherwise, I couldn't do this. I would not be motivated to do this if I were not seeing intense suffering everywhere. More.
Sokuzan, so is there still the activity of getting rid of negativity?
I don't think so. Trying to look at that to see if I've been able to get rid of any suffering.
Sokuzan, what's the difference between somebody that's trying to get rid of their suffering and
And this,
yes,
I don't care how I feel, and you do. Because there isn't anyone here, so I don't have an opinion on it. The suffering's dependently risen. My anger that came up in the Hojo when I looked and saw, oh, I forgot to call her. That anger is it's dependently risen. It doesn't belong to anyone. I don't care how I feel. That doesn't mean I might not look like I care. But if you watched me, if you were watching me, it looked like I cared how I felt. No. What was important is what I forgot, not how I felt about it. Can you go into that a little bit? I mean, it's a big difference. I felt like I let her down. So did I care how I felt? No. I would do it again. I would do it tomorrow. There's anyone is ever endeavoring to fix or repair, stop doing that, stop forgetting, or you can actually have, any of you can actually have feelings and emotions come and go in your mind stream without latching onto them or trying to shove them away, which makes more feelings or anger or resentment, or justifying, which is passion, blaming others for how you're feeling, thinking that your negativity is caused by this person over here or that person. Go ahead.
Suzuki bowing. A moment ago, you said sit more. When I said I might not be aware of how I'm feeling if I produce. Should I have an expectation that the practice will help me improve my awareness so that that doesn't happen?
No. All of the things that are in your statement there shows me what you're dealing with there. You think that you're aware. There is no my awareness. There's just awareness. This belongs to no one. Consciousness has no ownership, has no boundary, has a temporary location in human form, but you don't have to let that be a trap. Just don't believe what arises. Don't disbelieve what arises, and don't ignore what arises. Don't look away from it, and realize your true nature. Liberate yourself from the three poisons. This doesn't mean they'll go away. It just means they'll no longer be a prison because you'll see that they're transparent. They're unreal. Unreal. They have no density, no substance to them. Like watching a movie.
Suzuki bowing. I lost track of what you were saying for a moment. What has no density? The three poisons?
What?
Are you saying that the three poisons have no density?
Yes, they only have the density you give them. Reinforcing it. Anger comes up, reinforcing that anger. But if the anger is self-existing, then it may make all kinds of sparks and everything. It does not last. I can actually deliberately get intensely angry right now. And it's actual anger, and it's anger, but there's no person. Because if you understand this, you're no longer hog-tied by anything. You're not afraid of anything. You're not afraid of anger. You're not afraid of death. Not afraid, because it is entirely an illusion. It's only consciousness. And even that's suspect.
Divine, when in those intense when you're receiving such intense emotions like anger. Today, there were two examples, one with Jasheen and one regarding forgetting that appointment. Are you narrowing down on receiving that emotion, or are you still aware?
I'm not sure what you want to know. With Jasheen, quite a bit different than angry at myself, angry at Jasheen, or angry at my discontinuity in my ability to deliberately remember something. But what was Jasheen's right here, at least her name is on the screen. That was a totally about teaching her. And not only teaching her, but anybody else that was watching that interchange. For those of you who didn't see, I erupted very angrily to her, slammed my hands on my knees. But I'm not doing that deliberately. I'm looking at what she is saying. I am listening to what Jisheen is talking about. I'm watching the way she's taken something that I have said and turning it around upside down so she can continue to protect her identity with that question. And since she has given me permission to be her teacher, I'm not going to let her do that. And it would not help if you ever talk to Jisheen very much. It would not help to enter into a conversation about it because she'll win. Right, Jisheen? When I say she'll win, I mean she's able to go in a circle much easier than any of you are. I've watched her do it for years. It's not a criticism. This is not a compliment. What I'm about to say. She's a brilliant woman. Not a compliment. It's just an observation. But the only way I can get through to Jisheen, especially in that situation where she was taking something that she does this not all the time, but sometimes will turn something that has been said into and use it as a question. But what she's doing is she's doing more of a cover up of something rather than actual question where she wants to know something. So that's where I took a swing at her, which she received very politely. Is she there somewhere? There she is. How do you feel about that? Are your cheeks still bright red from being whacked by the teacher?
I'm grateful for your teachings. Thank you.
Send money. I'm grateful for you, Jisheen. You're very, very persistent about the Dharma, and you show up on the screen in the study groups every day, day after day after day. Who's got the telescope made out of a piece of rutabaga? Or is that, what has he got? You're not gonna tell me? Young?
I thought it's not me. My son got a gun, toy.
Well, you got a toy gun. That looked like a piece of, looks like a vegetable. Yeah.
I hope I can receive that way too. He's just very excited to come and show it to you.
Yeah, well, tell him
I'm popping it up for the next bag.
he's what?
That will be whoever. In the basement.
Just loud. Yeah.
He's very loud. Yeah, it's good for him. Thank you. Are there further questions? Yes, sir.
Chandra Bowing, when you're talking about what a mistake is, it seems like you've said a few things like it's off from what you intended something to do,
Like that.
or it's off balance, or different things like that. I guess I'm wondering, what is the underlying thing that makes us feel that something is a mistake?
Well, I think fundamentally it's belief in a separate self or an ego that needs to get everything right. That is trying to do things. So you plan to go out to the garage and get in your car and drive to the store. And instead you trip over the broom handle that fell, you leaned up against the wall, you trip and fall against the car and hit your head. And then it's kind of a mistake. The broom wasn't put up right, or somebody put it down, So, I mean, I'm not sure if I'm getting close to what you're, but there are things that we call mistakes and they're misjudgments or in my case, this absent-mindedness of not remembering I was supposed to make a phone call at noon. I just didn't do it. It felt like a mistake. I'm not sure. Did I get close?
Shanji, I'm not even sure what I'm getting at. It feels like when you said you were drawing that O, and you said the whole time it kind of felt like a mistake, like each aspect of that.
Well,
And
the circle felt okay until I got around until I started looking at the way the circle was looking in relationship to this big blob that was in the center of it. That didn't have the same continuity as the letter O. It had a kind of off-centered, like a stink bug, something like that in the middle of it. So rather than go in and try to make the O larger to cover that blob, instead I left it because I started to get curious about how that would look. I didn't do anything with that. And then I came down, it was O, and then a B came down, and then I remember, I can't remember making this phone call, but I remember those shapes because I was on it. I mean, I was looking, anything that came out of the end of the brush, I looked at it. So I know the B went up for the observe, and then I didn't like the top of that B, so I added some more ink to the top of it. Do you remember me doing that? So I was modifying things as I went, but also the one continuous mistake part comes from maybe a better word would be to see that it doesn't look like anything is going very well. I'm not getting some kind of appreciation from it. Now I might look at it tomorrow or 20 minutes after I did it and come back and glance at it and think, oh, that's because I'm seeing the entire thing at the time. But when you're doing it, it's very hard to use peripheral vision like I teach in opening the eye mind practice. That's something I would teach when I eventually teach the life drawing class, which I'm going to do over here at the yoga studio here sometime, maybe this winter. Then I will talk about how to use peripheral vision to not only look at what you're doing, but look at all the space around it at the same time. That's an actual technique that you can use. More?
I'm bowing. I still don't know exactly what I'm looking for, but that feeling or that underlying perception that something's off balance or just not going correct, kind of.
Yes, that's what you need to receive.
Okay.
Just feeling that something's not working, right? Because that is your insight is working into that situation. So it's rather than try to correct that or fix that right midstream, you might want to keep paddling rather than try to fix something before it is in a position where you can really do anything about it. Yes.
Shanji, so is something off about the situation, or is there something just their internal ego perception that's off?
All of that. It could go back and forth between those rather than come up with some kind of crisp, oh, it's this or it's that. It could be shifting around that area quite a bit and go to something that you and I have not even discussed yet that might have a conceptual index to it that we might get to if we were to go in and analyze that. The most important thing is rather than do it through analysis, do a little bit of that so it gets you close to an understanding of what this is, just like if you were to study any conceptual teaching, Dogen or Vasubandhu, or any conceptual structure about the teachings. That those only go so far. Then you need to actually go in and actually look at that with the awareness. That's what we would be doing in something like brush and ink awareness practice, or calligraphy, or life drawing, or any kind of producing something. Probably even true with food. You're a cook. Probably even you're an attorney. It's probably even true in that way. It's moving things around conceptually in that area using your interpretation of the whole legal structure of everything. Don't you sense something like that? Where you're kind of playing with those concepts and things rather than locking down on anything. Yes?
Yes.
Yeah. Want to say anything about it?
It just always feels off in the legal area, so
That's exactly what I'm talking about. That's something you've been doing for many years, and always feeling off is awareness. It's not wrong. This is what I'm encouraging each person to do as if you're a meditator, just whatever shows up, receive it. And quite often what shows up when it's negative, we don't want to receive it. So the knee-jerk reaction is to try to stop it or blame something or somebody or some situation or our parents for that matter, or anything but receive it. This is your opportunity to be completely genuine, a completely whole embodiment of the human form or of Buddha nature. It's possible to do.
Sokuzan, is when you talk about choicelessness or that we don't have a say so about anything, and we have an activity where we think that we're wrong, is that where that illusion of choice is that in that feeling of
So
being
when I
wrong?
say choiceless, I'm saying it always looks like there's a choice. But fundamentally, if you look at it fundamentally, it's choiceless. That doesn't mean you can't move this from here to there. It looks like a choice. But it's much more complicated than that. This is very simple. You can do this all day long and prove a point. But where did the hand come from? Where did the wood come from? Where did the table come from? Where did the question come from about it? Nothing is separate from anything else. It just looks like it. And the ego mind will make use of that separation to try to get its way. Yes, sir.
Chokodaba, is there a connection between mistakes and control or lack of control?
I think there is. You want to say something about it?
Chokodaba, I feel like it's connected with what Shoko was asking as well, the choiceless quality, but
Louder, please.
um,
Yell. Ah! Now, if you would have said something, that would work. You didn't. That's pretty good. Now, what were you going to say?
I don't know yet.
So choiceless quality and mistakes. I think that to respond as clearly as I can, it's so changeable, so fluctuating. It's difficult to come up with a nice, crisp, solid response to that will say, oh, now I understand what that's about. But I think it's a very good area to contemplate. If you have a choice, if you don't have a choice, what does choicelessness really mean? To not have a choice? What does that mean so that you can have your understanding or anyone can have their understanding of what that is? Because it won't necessarily come up with some kind of a dictionary description. Other than there's no one there to make any choices.
When you're bowing, the sixth grade precept is no dwelling on past mistakes.
Yes,
If we dwell on a past mistake, are we not receiving? Bowing?
probably shutting down. You're using the past mistake to reify or reinforce the belief in a separate self who's got things wrong. It's just not going to get things right. Here I go again. I've done that. I did it once. I made this terrible mistake, and always be regretful or remorseful about something you did wrong. Ego. It's a kind of a reverse kind of pride.
And you're bowing, so in the example of your forgetting the appointment, the phone appointment. Was that, and there seemed to be an outflow of anger?
You mean to say that Ondo is dwelling on my past mistakes?
Is there any anything to be learned from reiterating what occurred?
Like we just did?
Mhm.
I don't know. Maybe. What do you think, Ondo? Do you think there's something to be learned from it?
I don't know if I learned anything, but there was something that I felt was important to go into.
Soker bowing, when you got emotional about that story, you said, I felt like I let her down. Was there any aspect of that that said she thinks I'm senile, or any sort of
Hmm.
was there any arising of I'm worried?
I
what
don't
she
think
thinks
so,
of
although
me?
maybe she did. That's very possible. I didn't occur to me, but of course, I'm senile, so I'm not gonna think of that. It can't possibly be my fault. So, no, I don't think so. Anything else around that?
Yeah, Soker and bowing, the contrast between I was intending to put her before myself, as opposed to someone who makes a mistake and is more worried about what people will think of them.
Let's see.
Like, I left the Karma door unlocked last week.
Yeah.
And Senchu's office was
Ransacked.
something, yes. And I was more worried about her impression of me than the actual risk that I put the community in. And that in contrast to you saying I was intending, like I wanted to be there for her. I wanted to support her. How are those two different?
I don't know. So again, it's about awareness of that situation. Just like if I trying to think if there was some area where I was concerned about what this person has been going through. It was like maybe adding on to that, being let down by people, so that made me feel sad about it. That's all. There's nothing I can do about it. As far as your situation over there, just absent-minded, and you're certainly not senile. But I'm not sure you were concerned about what Senchu would think.
So grand bowing, it's more the paranoia of being afraid that I don't know how to go into it. Less anger, but more paranoia around people's thoughts of me.
Oh, okay, about not being a very smart person with a
Yes.
good memory. It's unlikely that anybody's gonna think, I mean, I might say something in a text like, please lock the doors. Have I said that before?
Yes.
Yeah, I do say that. And then I probably said it to you, didn't I?
Yes.
Yeah, I did. Did that make you feel bad?
Again, yes.
Yeah. It works. You think it'll help you keep the doors locked?
Yes.
Oh. A complicated situation, of course. I don't mean to make light of what you're saying. Is there a further question about it?
No, thank you.
Yes.
Mozuku bowing, how can I receive a mistake if the mistake is ignorance?
Give me a little bit more of a context.
Well,
I'm asking you to, when I say receive, I'm saying be aware of it rather than to immediately try to come up with a bunch of fix-it ideas, including blaming, including having a bunch of remorse over it, which tends to cover up what actually happened.
Mozuku bowing, I'm thinking of mistakes where I have successfully covered up something, like how I feel. How do I receive that mistake if I've successfully been unaware of something?
Well, I wouldn't be too concerned about that one. That would be more like what dwelling on past mistakes that Onyo referring to in what 6%. So just intend to see things clearly as they arise. Take a final question on Zoom if there is one.
Bowing.
Go ahead. See you.
So today during the study, you gave Jishin a lesson. At the same time, you reminded us to observe what's going on.
Yeah.
It was a lesson for me too. My question is to whatever you does, you try to remind us we are observing ourselves. It's a lesson. Is that possible with long time practice? Are we able to treat others or hard experiences as our teachers and the teachings? Bowing.
Well, I think so. The idea is if you might need a teacher to mirror back what you're going through or what you're dealing with. But actually, if you're a student all the time, then anything that happens to you can be a teaching for you. You just may need to do some sitting practice, meditation, possibly have some help from a teacher to get you going so that you can treat your life. Everything that happens in your life as a teaching, so that you can be a student of this amazing thing we call the human birth. Precious human birth. Can't do this again. You don't know if you can, don't know if you'd want to. Free and well favored, free to actually be in a meeting like this. Some countries you can't do this. You just, you all know who they are. But this one, so far, we still can. And you're well favored in that your mind isn't so clogged up with beliefs, opinions, paranoia, and judgments of everything, that you can actually consider what, in this case, what this Dharma teacher is endeavoring to talk to you about and point out to you, you'll receive it.
When you say it seems a long time, and also you always say that that's a long time practice. However, you often say just be yourself, be genuine. How can I be myself? I'm still walk on this path.
Well, I think it takes, each person is dealing with different aspects of the three poisons: passion, aggression, and ignorance. Each person has a different kind of karma. Some people are born into situations where there's all kinds of obstacles. Their finances, their relationship, their mental state that's coming and going. Other people are born more free and well favored. They have more freedom. They're better off financially. They're better off health wise, and all of those things. They have more of an opportunity to actually practice. But they may not be well favored, and they have an open-mindedness where they would actually do that. Instead, they might spend their time controlling other people and being really cruel to people that work for them. There's just so many ways that it can show up. Right and wrong don't particularly help here. What does help is for you or me or anyone to see that you could actually train your mind to see clearly, so you could function in relationship to the world in a kind, supportive, and uplifted way, and not fight with everything. Start by not fighting with your mind. That's a difficult one. We want to control ourselves or judge ourselves or accuse ourselves or do something. And so, going back to your question, I would say just take it a step at a time, a day at a time. Return to the cushion, return to the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha, the teacher, the teaching, the community. Study the Dharma. Meet everyone where they're at. Try to listen a lot to people. Listen to how they're doing. They don't have to be meditators. They don't have to have any spiritual path at all, particularly. But you can listen to people. You can be kind to people.
Thank you. Bowing.
Thank you. One
Sure,
more.
Bob.
Yes.
If I feel like I am making a mistake or that I am wrong in my interactions with the teacher, am I holding myself up to a standard of how I should function as a student?
I don't know. I can't make a judgment on it. I have no idea.
Can the student make a mistake?
Well, a mistake is, like knocking off it's a mistake. You don't deliberately knock the clock. So you moving this way and you're getting ready to do this and you bump. So that kind of a mistake, yes. But are you saying, can they deliberately do something that they know is a mistake and do it anyway?
Shokubang, I think more so that looking at the judgment of being wrong, if one is functioning a particular way, is that should the student try to adjust their behavior to not be?
Maybe somewhat. That's very situational. So there's no standard, there's no algorithm that, oh, do it this way. I don't even teach meditation that way. The only thing I teach is in Shikantaza, sit down, hold still, have all the senses open and watch what continues to move. It's that simple. And but how you do that or how anyone else does that is going to be quite a bit different. Would show up differently. Some people are just flooded with thoughts and memories and emotions, and some people fall asleep. Some people are full of judgments of themselves or possibly others. Or some people just daydream and just entertain themselves for hours. Some people are very good at just imagining things. Not much practice happens there, but it's not wrong. It's just what that person is going to have to go through. Whereas some teachers teach doing it a particular way, so they get you into a certain kind of state of mind. I don't particularly hold with that view. I'm not against it. If people want to do that, they should do it.
Sure, mine, oftentimes if I'm triggered in the sense of feeling like I'm wrong or something that I'm doing is wrong, there's the continuation of that, like I am not a devoted student, or I don't have enough devotion to the student or to the teacher. Is that a misunderstanding of what devotion is?
Tell him what devotion is. 36 words or less. I mean, I know you can speak on this, so just say a couple words that might help him in that particular structure he's asking him.
Sokuzan. I'm having a lot of I don't know right now.
What's the start?
I think within devotion, there's going to be more of that negativity than the positive thinking the teacher's great. That's kind of the point. That's why we're on the path, is to see those areas that
Louder.
those
Don't
areas
yell.
that are
Oh, yeah.
that we cover up. Don't yell. Stop yelling.
Feelings that we cover up.
I feel devotion's really hard to talk about.
It is.
It just shows up as I don't know what it is. So
You consider yourself as devoted?
I don't know.
Okay, do you think Shoka needs some instruction in devotion?
Apparently not for me.
Okay. So, Hondo, what do you think? Why don't you give Shoka some feedback on devotion? You're pretty devoted.
I'm gonna go to the same place. It is incredibly difficult and it is constantly shifting. So I would say it's returning to the feet of the teacher. And that might mean what the teacher's teaching. It might be giving the teacher a benefit of the doubt. It might be returning to the forms the teacher has set up over and over and over again.
Hello.
Go ahead. That's devotion. Devotion to that plastic gun. Do you want to make a statement on devotion?
You're bowing. It looks like putting others, particularly the teacher, before ourselves, before myself.
How's it going?
It's difficult.
Are you able to do that with the teacher before yourself? You actually have to do that with the whole world, but you might have to start with the teacher. Not easy, especially when the teacher's like with Jasheen. Look how much trouble she probably has. Her teacher just yelled at her and all she was doing is trying to ask a question. He jumped up and bit her head off, didn't I, Jasheen? Go ahead.
Shokubowing. Some time ago during one of my practice monk talks, I think Ondo asked me how devotion shows up to me. And I ended up saying like bright water, crystal river. But when I asked you about how I have difficulty describing that or characterizing that, you said it's better to just not describe it at all. But in my day-to-day life, there's the constant self-evaluation of whether or not there's devotion or if I should be more devoted, or so what is that continual process of discriminating?
Well, category, she would say, don't think about it. He's not here, so I can't check in with him. Don't think about it. Just do your job. Get yourself to the cushion, come to the book studies, and just keep it very, very simple. You've been practicing for many years. Don't look to more devotion, less devotion. Don't compare shopping. You wouldn't even be here if there weren't some devotion happening. Yes.
Sokuzan, what's the difference between devotion and worship?
Devotion has more to do with you, and worship has more to do with you bowing down in obeisance to some kind of a leader or a dictator or a god or a deity. The guru is not a deity. The teacher is not a deity. Teacher is the same as you are. They just see something you don't. One more, and then I'm going to take Shotos, and then we'll close since we're getting pretty late.
Sokuzan, how could I respond to somebody who doesn't have a practice or who isn't familiar with the Dharma or Buddhism? What to them might look like worship if they're asking about it?
Well, what are they asking? Are you worshiping somebody? Is that what they say? Say no. Do not describe, don't explain anything to anybody. Because they're just going to tie you up in knots, worse than Jishin can. She's smiling, in case you're wondering. Don't explain it. Don't do that, because all they're going to do is take any of your explanations and convert them around, because they have no mind training at all. They have no time sitting down and looking at the nature of the mind. So respond, be polite to them, but you don't have to explain it or justify it. Do you have people that are picking on you because you're a Buddhist monk?
I wouldn't say picking on me, but they want to understand it. They are asking for some explanation.
Give them a book. Say, read this or read that. Not my books. Just give them a book on basic Buddhism. You could. And if you feel like you're really serious, that might be a better thing for them to do. Like that, then they could ask you questions out of the book, perhaps. More?
Thank you.
One more question, Shoto.
One time you had a student shake their fist in your face and you told them that was devotion.
Yes.
How was that devotion?
Well, it was when they did it. But then they stopped doing that and left. I also had a student smash my kitchen table. That was devotion. Still is, as far as I know. Very easy to get angry at the teacher because they're not giving you an easy time. I'm not here to make friends with anybody. You want friends? Look elsewhere. That doesn't mean I can't be friendly. I'll try to be. But a spiritual friend is much different than the conventional friend that just buys into your neurosis and your self-deception. Much different situation. Thank you so much.
May the merit of this penetrate into all places, so that we and every sentient being together can realize the Buddha's way. Dio san shi shi fu shi son bu sa mo ko sa mo ko ja ro mi. The 10 directions, the 3 times, all Buddhas, all venerable ones, Bodhisattvas, Mahasattvas, the great Prajna Paramita,